My name is Megan Carter. I'm 25, and I work as a social worker on the south side of Chicago. Most days, I help families fill out housing forms, find food programs, and survive situations that would break you if you looked at them too long. I've sat across from mothers who haven't slept in 3 days. I've watched teenagers pretend they don't care when they're clearly terrified. I've told people again and again, you're not alone. And then, 2 months ago, I became the girl who was alone. The girl who signed her name under a number and felt her soul turn cold. It started on a Tuesday night in late October, the kind of Chicago night that smells like wet asphalt and old exhaust. The wind whipped between buildings, sharp as broken glass. I came home from work with my scarf pulled tight, my hands numb inside my gloves. Our apartment building's lobby light flickered like it couldn't decide if it wanted to live. When I opened the door to my unit, it hit me immediately. That stale smell of burnt coffee and cheap cigarettes, even though my dad had sworn he quit years ago. The living room was too quiet. My dad was sitting at the kitchen table, elbows on the wood, head in his hands like he was praying. A single desk lamp made his shadow look huge and crooked against the wall. "Dad?" I said softly. He didn't answer at first. His shoulders were shaking. My dad is not a crying man. He's a former mechanic who used to come home with grease under his nails and jokes in his mouth. I had seen him angry. I had seen him tired. I had never seen him like this. Finally, he lifted his head. His eyes were red. His face looked older, like the skin had been pulled tight over his bones. On the table, right in front of him, was a thick manila folder, the kind you get from a law office. And beside it, an envelope with a hospital logo. My stomach clenched. "What happened?" I asked. He swallowed like his throat was full of sand. "Meg, I messed up." That sentence is a trap. Once you hear it, you know your life is about to change. He pushed the envelope toward me with a trembling hand. I opened it and saw numbers that didn't look real at first. $178,430.52. Then more pages, more charges, more late fees, more threats written in polite, cruel words. My hands started shaking so hard the paper rattled. What is this?" I whispered. Dad's voice cracked. "Your mom's last surgery, the rehab. I thought the insurance covered more. I thought I could handle it. My mom passed away when I was in college. We'd been drowning ever since, but I never knew the water was this deep." "How long have you had this?" I asked. He looked away. "Long enough." The lamp hummed. Somewhere outside, a train groaned along the tracks. The sound felt like a warning. "They're going to sue me," Dad said. "They'll garnish my wages, they'll take the car, they'll come after you, too." I blinked. "They can't come after me. It's not my debt." Dad's eyes flicked up, terrified. "That's what I thought." He slid the manila folder toward me. It had a gold-embossed logo at the top. A downtown firm, expensive, clean, the kind of place where the lobby smelled like citrus and money. Inside was a contract, neatly printed with tabs and highlighted lines. My name was already typed in, my social security number, my address, my whole life in black ink. At the top, marital agreement. I stared at the words until they blurred. "What is this?" I asked, but my voice already knew. Dad's hands clenched into fists. "I went to see someone, a lawyer. He said there's a way to stop it." "Stop it how?" My mouth was dry. He hesitated, then said the name like it hurt to say. Ethan Rowe. Even before that night, everyone in Chicago's downtown legal world had heard of Ethan Rowe. Corporate attorney, ruthless in court, fast promotions, the kind of man who could destroy a company with a single filing. The kind of man you do not want to owe anything to. Ethan Rowe made an offer, Dad said, voice barely above a whisper. "He'll pay the medical bills. All of them. He'll stop the lawsuit." My fingers tightened around the contract. The paper felt cold. "What does he want?" I asked. His eyes filled again. "He wants you to marry him." The world went silent, like someone had turned the volume on reality. I heard my own breathing, sharp and panicked. I heard the refrigerator click on. I heard my heart hammering against my ribs like it was trying to escape. You sold me," I said, so quietly it was almost nothing. Dad flinched like I slapped him. "No, Meg, no, don't say it like that." "How else am I supposed to say it?" I snapped, and then my voice cracked too. "You're telling me my freedom is worth $178,430.52? Dad sobbed, full body sobs that made the table shake. I didn't know what else to do. They were coming for everything. And then Mr. Rowe said he could fix it only if I become his wife. My throat burned. Dad reached across the table, tried to grab my hand, but I pulled back like his touch hurt. The contract sat between us like a weapon. I grabbed it and ran to my room. I shut the door and pressed my back against it, sliding down onto the carpet. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight like someone had wrapped a belt around my lungs. I stared at the pages. My name, the clauses, the signatures waiting. In the corner of my dresser was a framed photo of my mom. She was smiling, one hand on my shoulder at my college graduation. Her eyes looked warm and certain, like she believed the world could be kind. I whispered, "What would you do?" There was no answer, only the faint hiss of traffic outside and the old radiator ticking as it warmed. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay on my bed and listened to Dad moving around the apartment, his footsteps heavy and slow. Every time he coughed, my stomach clenched. Because no matter how angry I was, I knew the truth. If I didn't do this, we would lose everything. And I was the type of person who always did the hard thing for someone else. That's what everyone said about me. "Megan, you care too much. Megan, you're always saving people. Megan, when do you ever choose yourself?" I guess my answer was never. 2 weeks later, I stood on the steps of a small courthouse downtown with the wind cutting through my coat. Chicago in November doesn't ask you if you're ready, it just hits you with cold and expects you to deal with it. Dad stood beside me, pale and silent, and Ethan Rowe, my future husband, stood on the other side. He was taller than I expected, broad shoulders under a charcoal coat, dark hair, perfectly neat. His face was calm, unreadable. His eyes were the kind of gray that looked like winter. He didn't smile. He barely looked at me. That should have made me feel safer. Instead, it made me feel like I was nothing. A transaction. A line item. We went inside. The hallway smelled of old paper and floor cleaner. My boots squeaked on tile. Every sound felt too loud, too sharp. The judge spoke quickly. The clerk stamped papers. Someone asked, "Do you agree?" I said yes, with a voice that didn't sound like mine. When Ethan said yes, it was low and flat, like he was confirming a business deal. My fingers were numb as I signed the documents. The ink looked too dark. And then Ethan slid the contract, the same one from our kitchen table, across the desk to me. "Keep this," he said. His voice was calm, but there was something under it, something tired. I stared at him. "Why?" He said, "Because it's yours," as if that explained everything. I tucked the contract into my bag like it was a brick. That night, Ethan's driver picked us up in a black sedan that smelled like leather and faint cologne, clean and expensive. The city lights streaked across the windows. People outside laughed, hurried, lived normal lives. I sat stiffly on one side of the back seat, pressed against the door. My hands folded so tight my knuckles hurt. Ethan sat on the other side. His phone was dark. He wasn't scrolling. He wasn't working. He was just staring out the window like he was somewhere else. The silence between us felt like a wall. I kept thinking of the contract in my bag, the weight of it, the meaning I had poured into those pages. At one point, Ethan turned his head slightly, like he was going to say something. My heart jumped, my throat went dry, but he just sighed, a quiet exhale, and looked away again. That sigh made my stomach twist. He's annoyed, I thought. He regrets this. He's thinking about what he bought. We arrived at Ethan's building near the river, one of those glass high-rises with a doorman and spotless floors that reflect your own face back at you. The elevator ride was silent. The air smelled like polished metal. When the doors opened on the top floor, Ethan led me down a hallway so quiet it made my ears ring. Inside the penthouse, it was beautiful in the way museums are beautiful, expensive and cold. The floors were dark wood, the windows were huge, the city spread out below like a glittering machine. And yet, there were no photos, no warmth, no signs of someone living there. It felt like stepping into a life I didn't belong in. Ethan shrugged off his coat and hung it neatly. He loosened his tie with slow, controlled movements. My hands started shaking again. I could hear my own pulse. He walked toward the bedroom. Every step he took, I felt my body tense. The bedroom was massive. The bed was perfectly made, white sheets tucked tight. The air was cool, almost too cool. The silence was thick. Ethan closed the door behind us, and then I heard it. Click. The lock. My blood turned to ice. My mind exploded with panic. He locked it so I can't leave, so I can't scream, so no one can. I backed up until my shoulders hit the wall. My breath came in short bursts. My hands shook so hard my bag strap slid down my arm. The contract inside my bag pressed against my hip like a reminder. This is what you signed, I thought. This is what you agreed to. Ethan turned. He saw me pressed against the wall. For the first time, something flickered across his face. Not anger, not desire, something like concern. "Megan," he said softly. The sound of my name and his voice made my eyes sting. I didn't answer. I couldn't. He took one step closer and I flinched so hard my shoulders jerked. He stopped immediately. "Hey," he said quieter, "I'm not going to hurt you." My mouth opened, but no words came. The room smelled faintly of cedar and laundry detergent. Somewhere, the heat vent whispered. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a small key. He walked back to the door, unlocked it, and opened it wide. The hallway lights spilled in like a lifeline. "Doors open," he said. "Okay?" I stared at it, confused. He returned to the bedroom but stayed several feet away. Then he gestured toward the chair near the window. "Sit if you want," he said. I didn't move. My heart was still pounding so hard it made my vision pulse. He rubbed the back of his neck, like he didn't know what to do with his own hands. "I locked it out of habit," he said. "I live alone. He swallowed. "I didn't think." I watched him carefully, like a wild animal watches a human, ready to run at the smallest sign of danger. He pointed at my bag. "Is that the agreement?" My fingers tightened on the strap. "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Can I see it?" My stomach dropped. "Why?" "Because I think you've been told something that isn't true." My lips went numb. "What are you talking about?" Ethan took a breath, steadying himself. Then he said, "Megan, I didn't ask your father to trade you for money." I froze. He stepped closer, only a little, keeping his voice calm. "Your dad came to my office because the hospital collection company was about to file a claim that could affect you too. Not because you owed the bill, because of other paperwork. Old paperwork." My skin prickled. "What paperwork?" Ethan's jaw tightened. Your father co-signed something years ago. A loan, a business loan. It defaulted, and the debt got tangled. I don't understand. He looked at me, eyes steady. You were listed as a potential successor on one of the documents. If your father got sued hard enough, they could have come after anything tied to your name. The room tilted. I felt like I was falling. The marriage agreement, Ethan said, was a legal shield. My breath caught. A shield? Yes, he nodded once. Marriage changes certain liabilities and protections. It can create legal boundaries. It can stop someone from claiming you're responsible as next of kin or successor in a business entity. I stared at him, my mind racing. So you didn't do this to own me? Ethan's face tightened with something that looked like pain.
Own you, he repeated, like the word tasted bad. Megan, I don't want to own anyone. I blinked hard. Then why agree to marry me at all? He exhaled, slow. Because your father refused a direct payment. He said he wouldn't accept charity. That sounded like my dad. Stubborn pride wrapped around fear. Ethan continued. I offered to negotiate the bills, to set up a legal defense. He said no. He said the only way he'd accept help was if he gave something back, something that made it feel even. My throat tightened. So he offered me? Ethan's eyes softened. He offered an alliance. He offered a marriage. I felt sick. All this time, I had been hating Ethan when my father's pride had been the knife at my back. I clutched the contract through my bag like it was the only solid thing in the room. Ethan looked at my shaking hands. Take it out, he said gently. Please. My fingers trembled as I opened my bag. The paper edges scraped my skin as I pulled it free. The contract looked even colder under the bedroom light. I held it up like evidence of my own humiliation. Ethan stepped forward and took it carefully, like it was fragile. He flipped to a highlighted section and pointed. This part, he said, is what matters. I leaned forward, squinting. The words swam, but I forced myself to read. It was a clause about separation, about exit, about financial independence. It said I could leave at any time. No penalty, no loss, no ownership. My mouth fell open. Ethan watched my face and nodded once. It's there so you're protected. I whispered, why didn't anyone tell me? Ethan's jaw clenched. Because your father was ashamed, and because I'm not good at explaining myself. He looked away, the first crack in his composed mask. He said quietly, I know what people say about me, that I'm cold, that I'm ruthless. He swallowed. Maybe I am, in court, but I didn't want you to be afraid of me. My eyes burned. I wanted to scream at my dad. I wanted to cry. I wanted to rewind time and shake myself for every ugly thought I'd had about Ethan. Instead, all I managed was, I thought I was being bought. Ethan's gaze snapped back to me. For a moment, he looked genuinely wounded. Then he did something I didn't expect. He folded the contract slowly, carefully. Then he tore it. One clean rip. The sound was loud in the quiet room. Rip, like a bandage being ripped off skin. My breath caught. He tore it again and again. Paper fluttered down like pale leaves. When he was done, he held the pieces out, then let them fall into the trash. There, he said, voice low. No more misunderstanding. My eyes filled instantly. Not pretty tears, not cinematic tears, the kind of tears that come when your body finally realizes it can stop bracing for impact. Ethan stepped back, giving me space. You're safe here, and if you want to leave tomorrow, you can. I'll still handle the bills, I'll still make sure no one touches you financially. This doesn't have to be anything you don't want. My throat tightened so hard it hurt. I whispered, then why do this at all? Ethan hesitated. Then he said, almost embarrassed, "Because I didn't want you to go through this alone." Silence settled between us, but it was a different silence now. Not a threat. A pause. A chance. My stomach growled suddenly, loud and traitorous. My face went hot. I hadn't eaten since lunch. Ethan blinked, then something softened in his eyes. "Hungry?" he asked. I nodded, mortified. He walked out of the room, door still open, and I listened to his footsteps fade down the hall.
I sat on the edge of the bed, hands still shaking, staring at the trash can where the contract pieces lay. The contract had been my cage, but it had also been my key. It was a misunderstanding made of paper, fear, and silence. 5 minutes later, Ethan came back carrying 2 paper bags that smelled like a diner at midnight: grease, fries, warm bread. "I didn't know what you'd like," he said, setting them down, "so I got safe options." He pulled out 2 cheeseburgers and fries from a 24-hour place near the river, 2 milkshakes, still cold. The smell made my eyes sting again for a different reason: simple kindness. He sat on the floor by the coffee table like it was the most normal thing in the world. "Come eat," he said, nodding at the spot across from him. I hesitated. Then I sat down, keeping a few feet between us. We ate in silence for a minute. The fries were salty and hot. The milkshake was so cold it hurt my teeth. The warmth of food spread through my chest like a thaw. Ethan spoke first, voice quieter now. "I hate suits." I laughed, one small, surprised laugh that sounded like a girl I used to be. "I hate courtrooms," I admitted. He smirked slightly. "Fair." And slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, my fear began to loosen. We talked about normal things: rent prices, how the L smells in winter, the way Chicago wind can make you feel personally attacked. He told me he grew up in a small town outside Springfield, that he learned to be hard because softness got taken advantage of. I told him I became a social worker because I couldn't stand watching people get crushed by systems they didn't understand. At some point, I looked at him and realized something terrifying and beautiful. He wasn't a monster. He was a man who had been living inside other people's assumptions, just like me. When it was late, past midnight, Ethan stood up and gestured to the bed. "You take it," he said. "I'll sleep on the couch." "Ethan," I started. He held up a hand gently. "Not tonight. Tonight, you sleep without fear." He walked to the door and placed the key on the dresser. "If you want to lock it, you can, for you." Then he left. I lay in the bed in a room that no longer felt like a prison. The city outside hummed quietly. The heat vent whispered. My hands finally stopped shaking. And in the trash can, the contract sat in pieces. It had appeared in my life like a price tag, but it ended as proof of something else. That love, real love, doesn't invoice your soul. It doesn't take your choices and call it romance. It doesn't demand your fear and call it loyalty. It offers safety first. The next morning, I called my dad. He answered with a shaky Meg. I said, "We're going to talk, but not today. Today, I'm breathing." And for the first time in weeks, I could. Real love isn't a transaction. It's respect, protection, and the freedom to choose. Comment "I choose safety" if you believe love should never feel like a contract. Subscribe for more real, emotional stories that remind you what love is supposed to feel like.